Alright, welcome back to the third section of the Scrape the Planet course. I'm your instructor, Mitchell Edwards. If you haven't seen the first two sections or the first couple of videos in this section, I highly recommend going back to them. This whole kind of course builds on itself, so you really don't want to miss out on the earlier sections and then kind of try to like jump into it midway. I don't really know why you would do that, especially landing on this video, which is just all about setting up a Postgres database. But yeah, if you've missed anything, just definitely go back and check it out because I'm not going to be going over too much stuff. So in the last video, we went over how to save stuff with text files. It's one of the things that we covered in the last video. And that works fine for proof of concept code. One of the things that you'll notice is it's limited, and your input-output rates for writing to and reading from text files is going to be pretty limited. It's going to be kind of slow. And whenever you start building out like even medium-sized or small-sized projects, especially big-sized projects, you definitely don't want to be writing to text files. So we're going to use databases. Now, I might have already pissed somebody off about this. Chances are I have. I picked Postgres more or less at random. I kind of like, I faintly remember Googling like years and years ago, like database technologies for storing XYZ. And I landed on Postgres, found out that there was a Python library, found out that it was relatively easy to use, and I knew that I didn't want to do anything in MySQL, so I picked Postgres. It's probably not the best database technology. It's probably not the best database technology for what I use it for. But it's what I know, and it's not something that I like actively deploy like projects with. I don't know that I would ever deploy a database with like any kind of personal information involved just because I'm not a database administrator. I talked about this earlier on in the course, I believe probably in this section. My experience is not in database administration. I set up databases that work, and later on, if I ever deploy something that uses a database, I will usually throw some pretty like serious security in front of it and make sure that it is as far from the user as humanly possible. It honestly makes me very nervous deploying databases because I don't have that much experience with it. So this is not going to be a video that even comes remotely close to best practices for database security. We're not going to use that. We're going to build something that works. And the reason why I'm not teaching database security is because I'm not an expert in it, and all of the databases that I've set up previously have been for like local use only. So I don't ever deploy these databases out, like I said. So whenever I'm saying like do this or do that, know that I'm not coming from like the standpoint of security. I'm actively like all of the different instructions that I'm going to give you, the things that I'm going to show you here, are going to be horrible security. Don't ever deploy with this security like in prod. Don't make sure that it's not like touchable from the internet because it's not secure. And definitely don't store anything, sensitive in it. However, we're going to build a database like kind of system that works. We're going to build one without security but with accessibility in mind, and hopefully you will heed my warning when I say do not deploy this to the internet. So like I said, we're going to be using Postgres, and Postgres is a very common like non-MySQL, or I think it's called NoSQL type database. We're going to start with a blank slate. I actually just finished installing this Ubuntu VM, and that's generally how I set mine up. Like I said, I'm not a DBA, and I just kind of need something that works, and Ubuntu has been incredibly easy to set up and tear down for me. So that's what I use, and that's probably like the second dose of flame bait in this video. Perfectly fine with people arguing about this in the comments or just helping my engagement rate. So we're going to start with installing Postgres. We're going to do that with sudo apt install PostGreSQL PostGreSQL.contrib. This is going to install the actual software itself. Probably going to fast forward through this bit because it's actually a fairly chunky install. All right, now that we have it installed, we're not going to clear the screen. This might actually make it a little bit easier to see. I kind of tried to maximize the size of the font here, but I really hope that it's not going to end up being too small. We're not going to spend too much time in this, and it's actually very, very easy to set this stuff up. I'm following DigitalOcean's guide. I'll link to that either in the description if you're on YouTube or somewhere if you're on Udemy. I don't know exactly how that works. So now you've got Postgres installed, and we're going to switch to the Postgres user. Whenever you install Postgres, it's going to automatically create this user. So we're going to use sudo -i-u Postgres. That's going to switch to the Postgres user. Going to clear that out, and PSQL. This is going to be the actual prompt that you use to create databases, to create tables, all of that fun stuff, and later on to actually read the data out. So PSQL is basically the command that you use to actually set up the prompt. So we're going to quit out of that with \q, and we're going to clear this out. Oop. Maybe not. There we go. So let's create a user here. We're going to use the command create user --interactive. All right, we're going to create a role. So this role, we're going to call it testDB, and we're going to make it a super user. I'm going to repeat this again. It's not like I didn't spend the last 5 minutes explaining it. Do not follow these exact these exact instructions if you're deploying to prod. This is a very insecure way to actually do Postgres, but we're going to do it this way to make it easier to actually set this stuff up in a local-only environment. This room right here is the only place that can actually connect to this database. All right, so we created our user. We're going to add the user now. Sudo add user. Let's actually back out of our command prompts with exit. We're going to do sudo add user testDB. New password, we're going to use the password. Again, don't do this in prod. Retype it. And we're going to go through all of those prompts. Pretty useless for us. All right. So now we can change to that user. So sudo -i -u testDB. And we're going to run PSQL. Oh, we've got to create the database, actually. All right, we're going to switch over to our Postgres user with sudo -i -u Postgres. And we're going to use the createDB command to create a database called testDB. Now that it's created, we're going to exit out. We're going to switch to our testDB user, if I can spell it right, and run PSQL. And then we've got coninfo. We are in the database testDB as user testDB via socket and blah, 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 blah. And that basically tells us that we've successfully created our database and we've connected to it. So we obviously don't have any tables. You can show that with DT. No relations there. We're going to do that later on in the next episode. Obviously, this one was short and sweet. I've got a recorded time of like 10.5 minutes, so it's very, very easy to set up, and that's one of the reasons why I kind of fell in love with it. I wouldn't say that I'm in love with it. I'd say that it's just kind of what I'm used to. And kind of a note on that, I'm not going to be doing anything in like the premier, perfect, efficient way. That's never how I've like done things in my career. If I really am like pushing stuff to prod, I'm going to try a lot harder, but I'm going to do things in ways that work, and I'm going to push them out in the most secure way possible, but not necessarily just the most efficient way possible. I'm not going to spend just tons and tons of time going into, well, is this database technology better than that? Is this better for my use case? Things like that. I use things that work. Postgres works for me. Ubuntu works for me. Python for scrapers works for me 99% of the time. So it's not necessarily, especially when you're starting out, when you're learning, don't get into all of those flame wars with people about, is Postgres better than Mongo? Is MySQL better than, any other like database technology? Don't get into the flame wars about operating systems, because frankly, like, those don't matter. Like, Ubuntu works, and that's why I use Ubuntu. And I'm not going to just take all of this time to learn about a new database technology or a new operating system, just because some weird nerd on the internet yelled at me because I used the wrong one in his eyes. Just don't get like baited into those arguments, and just use what works for you. This is the tech stack that works for me, so it's what I'm teaching. If you decide later on down the line that you like Mongo better, or that you like MySQL better, or that you like anything else better, just use it. Learn it, and learn it well, and if you're pushing to prod, learn how to secure it, but use whatever works for you. Thank you so much for watching this video. The next one, we're actually going to be getting into how to store data in the Postgres database using PsychoPG. Really, that's probably going to be about it for that section. We're going to move on to section 4, where we're actually going to be building spiders and doing all kinds of fun stuff with spiders and new scrapers, and talking about some more advanced concepts and things like that in section 4 and 5. Thank you guys so much. If you're watching this on Udemy, feel free to let me know what I've done wrong, what I've done right in the course reviews. If you want to wait until later on to do that, feel free. But it really does help me out. I'm probably going to be updating this course as much as humanly possible, especially as people leave me recommendations. So if you're viewing it on Udemy, it would be great if you gave me some feedback there. If you're viewing it on YouTube, welcome. Thank you so much for watching, and leave a comment and tell me what I did wrong. YouTube is much better at telling you, what you did wrong and things like that. So yeah, thank you all so much, and I will see you in the next video.